how to fuck up. I know how to fuck up, right? Now I'm learning how to be a man. Now I'm learning how to be a father. Now I'm learning how to be a businessman. These are titles that I get to put in there. I get to fill in the blanks with that. I am doubted by everybody. Everybody waiting on me to fuck up. Everybody. My friends, my family, the judges. Oh, listen, I make a mistake, they gonna bury me. You best believe that. But I get to fill in the blanks now. I get to fill, you see that camera right there? Listen, y'all doubted me. Yeah, look at me now. 1.2 million.
What up, though, Detroit? This is your guy, Darryl, Noodles, and Nolen. And once again, I want to welcome you to my show, Spending Time with Noodles. You could be anywhere else, but you took time out today to spend a little time with your guy. You know what? So much is going on in and around the city of Detroit. I got an amazing brother sitting next to me that, you know what? Because we're like-minded, he's business-minded. I just got to get straight into the game. You feel me? So let me tell y'all a little something about my guest today. Brother Cincere is currently the legal liaison and the legal aid provider for Cincere Detroit within the city of Detroit's health department. Cincere is a facilitator. He's a public speaker. Cincere is a national media and crisis management under the Andre Norman Incorporated umbrella of companies. He has attended the University of Detroit Mercy, George Washington University, and is currently studying at Harvard University through a fellowship afforded to him by way of an association through one of their fellows. Cincere's passion aligns with the foundation of assisting those who can relate to the struggle of growing up in the inner city. Cincere is big on community. And guess what, y'all? He practices what he preaches. Advocacy is his purpose, his gift, and also keeping it 100, his curse. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to welcome to Spending Time with Noodles, my good brother Cincere. Welcome. How you doing, bro?
I'm all right.
Good?
About yourself? Yeah, I'm good.
Today's a good day?
Every day is a good day.
Why is that? Why is every day a good day?
I'm here.
God part, we on this side of the earth, right? That means God got something for us to do, right?
Yeah.
It's his mission, right?
Yes, sir.
And we are what? Vessels, right?
All day long.
I like that. Let me share with my viewing audience how I was fortunate because, see, one thing about me, how I move spiritually nowadays, my prayer to God is always, put me around like-minded people. Put me around like-minded people. Because the ministry that God has given me is to inspire and encourage, but more so, get out in this community. So I was invited to an event. Cincere, you remember this. We was on Finkel Lab, baby.
Yes, sir.
Mothers keeping boots on the ground. They had an event take place, and I was invited to it. And of course, when I arrived, Finkel ain't far from the neighborhood I grew up in, because I'm a 6 Mile brother. But whenever I roll on Finkel, it's all in love. And so when I pull up, get an opportunity to introduce myself to people that are involved in the community, people that are doing God's work. See, oftentimes, it's more than going on social media and putting in that work on a keyboard. You got to be out in these streets. That's how you bring about change. That's what I believe in. You subscribe to that?
On this.
That part. That's how I met you, bruh. So it's my pleasure to welcome my man to my show. So let's rock and roll. Let's get into this thing. Why? Because I know his time is valuable. He got things to do. He got other places to be. I got some other things lined up. Some other clients that I got to go have a conversation with. But let me ask you this, Cincere. What side of town do you grow up in, bro? What side of town? What side of town you rap, man?
Oh, I'm from the east side.
East side all day, every day.
Red Mac and B Wick.
Mac?
Oh, yeah.
Most of us, when we describe the East Side, a lot of us from the West Side, when you say you deep East, we often reference Mac and B with. You feel me?
All things Mac. So all parts of my upbringing were around Mac. All three of my grandmothers stayed within a block south of Mac. And then even when we left Grandma's house, we ended up on the East Grand Boulevard and Ferry. So we're still walking distance from Mac. So, I'm all things Mac, all things East Side.
I love that, man.
I've got some references around there, but I'm East Side.
I understand that, man. I'm a West Side guy, but it's always good. East, West Coast, we get together, we show love to one another. What high school you come out of, Beck?
I graduated from Osborne.
Osborne, what was it? Pioneers?
No, Knights.
No, Osborne. Nice.
I was born back from, I was a problem child. So, I bounced fine. But I got a chance to touch it. A couple of the high schools around the city. I went through a lot in them high school years, but I ended up graduating from Osborne. So it was a blessing to be able to even graduate. Cause it's a hell of a story of how I even graduated.
So we gonna get into that, baby.
Yeah, so
we'll get into that.
But I got there.
Like that part. So let me tell my viewing audience, when I pulled up on Finkel to an event, Mother's Keeping Boots on the Ground, and we just got word, as you know, I'm sure Cincere, one of the founders of the organization, they apprehended the murderer that took her son, Elisa. So shout out to Elisa from Mother's Keeping Boots on the Ground. Let's just hope justice gets served. That's all I want to say on that piece. But I got a chance to meet you, man, and there was something about you, pardon me, relative to your energy, your spirit. God said, you know what? You and that brother gonna collaborate on something. Y'all gonna collaborate on something. And I believe today is the beginning of that collaboration. And I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come hang out with your guy Noodles. You filmed? So let's get into this thing, because one thing I'm a firm believer in. Before you interview anyone, you gotta know a little bit about their background. So my man Cincere done told you what side of town he grew up on, the high school that he graduated from. If you don't mind me asking, bro, what year you coming out of Osborne?
I came out, I was supposed to come out in 90. I ended up coming out in 92.
Okay, but that part,
Yeah.
hard.
I had a derail.
Hey, bro, we all understand that.
Detour. Listen, I had a detour in school. We'll get to that.
That part.
Yeah, we had it.
So today's topic, intentionally, because God poured this into my spirit, because I'm always one, any guest that comes on my show, and also based on conversations that you and I have had, you share some things with me, and I got a lot of respect for you, bro. So here's my question to you.
You ask?
You have an amazing story, bruh. So let's get into what you like to share with the viewing audience relative to your second chance you were given. So with that being said, when we talk about second chances, for me, that means something occurred in your life where you were given a second chance. Before we get into what you're doing today, what happened in your life, brother, where you were given a second chance? The viewing audience is awaiting your response.
Well, if I had to put a finger on it, I can remember a day and time where I wanted to try to incorporate change in my life, but I wasn't strong enough. So the date that I remember is December 19th, 2004. Now, what's significant about that date is it's my daughter's birthday, right?
Okay.
So twice I had something happen to me on December 19th. The first time was December 19th, 1999. But in 2004, I had an incident where I literally woke up and said, I'm tired. I want to do something different. And I literally walked out the house and did the exact same thing I did the day before, right? So what I figured out at that time is that I tend not to judge people who want to change because it took me 10 years to even build up the strength to try from the date that I actually could pin down when I wanted to do something different. So I think I had took enough deep breaths. I had bumped my head enough times, but I really didn't know how to live my life the right way. So it was at that time that I got tired of covering things up. You know, I was always to be able to hide behind my resources, hide behind the little few dollars that I had, hide behind the image, that pedestal that other people put me on. But it was at that time that I figured out I wanted to do something different.
Let me ask you this, bro. Are you open? Because I know you have a ministry. You know, I follow you. I mean, are you open to sharing, you know, the event or the activity that took place where, you know, you had to go away because it's part of your ministry? And you only share what you want to share, baby. It ain't got to be full detail. But
and
let's go.
Yeah.
Let's, like I said, real. Let's keep it 100. You spend time with Noodles, baby. We trying to change lives.
We talking about when I went away?
That part.
Well,
let's go.
I was a drug trafficker.
Okay.
By trade.
Okay.
So my business was cleaning the money up. That was my business.
Okay.
So the events...
Is that what they call money laundering?
That's what you call it.
That's what they say in corporate America.
Right.
Okay, just letting you know, we street guys. I mean, or you know, we know the flavor. Okay.
So the events that led me to going away was basically I had a track record of money laundering, and then eventually the paper trail caught up with me. But it was so many other things that was serious that was involved. But it was like that was the only thing that I could be caught up on at the time. So that's what it took to get me to go away. But oh boy, once they got their claws in me, then basically the towers started to fall down. And then I just end up with so many cases backed up with this backlog of all my activities. Like they say, what's done in the dark will come to light. That's exactly what happened.
Facts.
So I had unique charges because of the amounts that I was accused of laundering as an individual, and I had did it in a way that I don't think the world has seen at that time. You know, not where I'm from.
I feel you.
Not where I'm from.
I feel you.
So I went the white collar route. Even though, you know, money laundering is white collar, but I went the white collar route. And what I did is basically make a long story short.
You're going to make it short. You guys
now listen,
yeah.
I extorted the means of what I did and incorporated into business. So what I did as a drug dealer and while I was in the streets, what I did was covered everything up by legitimately running companies.
Correct.
Right. But I did it a little bit different because in the community and the foundation I'm from, it hadn't been done like that. So the art of what I was doing was I sold drugs to people who were on the high end of society.
Okay.
But they paid me differently than most people get paid. So what I did is I set up companies, and then what we did is instead of them paying me directly for the drugs, I had access to whatever they were a part of, bank accounts, credit cards, this, that, and other. So if a person owed me money, they write me a check. If a person owed me money, they make me an authorized user on the credit card or something like that. So now I was able to afford the means of everything that I had legally but illegally. And then over time, when I had people in debt, they owed me money. So then it can become a problem because now I got somebody that owe me $30,000. I'm like, write me a check for $30,000 or go buy me this Range Rover or put this down payment on the house or something like that. So it was a different type of laundering going on. And then it just took for somebody to get mad and like, I'm tired of this. And then basically somebody told on me. And that's
all
right, you can't even call it that because these were people in the corporate world. These were people that were legitimate. They weren't people that was in the street world.
I follow you.
Because I had moved up. I wasn't doing my business on the street corner anymore. Nah, I was.
That part.
Yeah, I was sitting at the table.
You said earlier, white collar crime.
Yeah, I was dressed like this.
That part.
You know,
Because you always been Mr. GQ since I'm there, baby.
so it was, that was the turn of events, and the label that was put on it was transferring securities. And transferring securities is just another way of saying that I was using financial instruments to move and to hide my money and in ways, and then they can label it depending on our amounts. And the amounts end up going into the millions of dollars. So, that was how I did business.
So, Brother Cincere, what age are we talking, bro? How old are you back during this time? What you experienced, what you went through when you finally got caught up? Yeah, they were on to you doing what they, doing what law enforcement does. How old were you back then, bro?
Well, I started hustling about 12 or 13.
Oh, wait.
So it was the early 80s. But at this time, when the real money, I've been on the other side of a dollar since about 90. I haven't been on the wrong side of a dollar since about 1990.
1990. Here it is. When 2025.
Yeah. So I got a nice couple summers in.
You know what? You and I have chatted. So
Right.
You know what? It's almost like being in church. I can have a script, but when God gets involved, he'd be like, "Hold on, so still just drop some knowledge." You just said you were at the age of what again? 12, 13 years old.
12, 13. Yeah.
How did that happen to you at such a young age? Where you pick up that hustle game from, bro? If you don't mind sharing, if it helps other younger brothers, where you get that from?
Well, the environment, it was more so the environment. So in the late 70s, early 80s, kids couldn't touch drugs. Like it was a taboo. Well, heroin was the big thing at that time. So they didn't let kids touch drugs because of what heroin did to people. But when the crack era came around, it's like everything went through the young people because somewhere, somehow, people figured out that kids were basically immune to prosecution.
Talking YBI days, baby, right?
Yeah. Well, it's around the end of the YBI era.
But that was the concept they used. They used because I had some friends.
Around the time the Bush went away.
Yeah.
And then around the time that BJ and them kind of picked up.
Yes.
And I was, from that era, you know what I'm saying? And I was associated, with that crew that came in at that time. So when the crack era came about, younger people were able to kind of manipulate the game. The older people kind of used the younger people to push, whatever the product was.
No doubt.
And then I was able, the actual beginning of it is the older guys in the neighborhood, I remember one time they got busted. I'm on Helen and Ferry at the time. The guys got busted. Police take them to jail. Me and my friends knew what the stash was. We went and took the dope out the stash, stood out there, sold our first drugs. You know what I'm saying? I might have made $300-400. I was 12, 13. So at this time, $300-400 at that time is
a lot of paper in your pocket.
Yeah, it's a lot. So I never really experienced being a worker because from the day that I started and then being in the environment that I was in, I was actually able to buy drugs, sell drugs, package drugs, all that kind of stuff at a very young age. So I didn't go through the stages that a lot of other people went through. My art of doing business now and my art of how I carry myself now is how I've been able to grow. And I practice something that most people don't practice. What I do is, regardless of what position I'm in, I just allow people to be right. If you want to be right, just go on and be right. Go on and be right. If I got $1 million and the person sitting across from me make $50,000 a year, I'm not going to try to big up them because I got $1 million. I'm going to let that person be right. Go on and be right, and I'm going to sit over here. And then what I know is coming from poverty and coming from the environment that I come from, that the less people have, the more they want to be right.
Preach, baby.
So the more I obtained and the more I acquired as I grew, the quieter I got. I'm like, what I need to be seen for? Because people are going to put you on whatever pedestal they're going to put you on, and you are who you are. So I created a barrier and a structure for myself at a young age that allowed me to grow. So it really wasn't about who made it and who didn't, but I had a formula, and my formula worked for me.
So let me ask you this question. So how old were you when you had to stand before the judge, right? They done caught up to Cincere. You've been doing what you've been doing. How old were you at the time? You standing in front of the judge, he handed down that sentence. How old were you?
Well, I went to prison at 14. So I first went to prison at 14. So, and I didn't go to like the youth home. I didn't do, like, I went to prison. So the system that they had then was training school.
Okay.
I went to training school in the 80s. And so I was 14 then. As an adult, I went to prison. I went to training school at 14. I did almost 2 years, right? On a response to a gang retaliation. And they kind of put me in that loop. But when I got out, I was a state ward. So I went through the system as a kid, right? I left home 13. I didn't leave home. I got put out. So 13, I was, put out of my household. So I was in the streets from that point on. And then I just gravitated towards everything that I knew in the streets. So 14, when I first was incarcerated, I got out at 16. That's how I ended up graduating school late, because I was incarcerated for that 2 years and I never finished because I was so young. I couldn't finish school at that age. So when I got out, I was bounced around from group home to group home, from system to system. So I missed a lot of school. So a part of that story was I had a band of teachers, and I have to say her name, but I had a teacher, a swim coach, and a health teacher named Miss Layla, Marilyn Layla. And she built the foundation for me. She was at Spain Middle School, and she had taught at probably a couple of high schools, but I ran into her at Osborne. That's how I ended up at Osborne.
Okay.
She was a strength and a guiding light for me at that time, but she got me into Osborne. I went to school. Her and some colleagues went through the process with me being a state ward. They came to court with me. They, reported to the courts and all that stuff on me and asked the courts to give me a chance to be able to graduate from high school because I was going to age out because I had been incarcerated. The schools, the system allowed me to go back to school, but I had to meet some stipulations.
Absolutely.
So my last 2 years of high school, what I did is I had 1 to 8s for both semesters. Well, for all 4 semesters for the last 2 years. So I went to night school for 4 semesters, summer school for 2 years, and I had a 1 to 8 for 2 years to make up for the time that I had missed when I was incarcerated.
Okay.
And I had to do it. That's how I ended up graduating.
So let me ask this question. So based on what you've shared with us already, because we got more questions to come, did you ever spend any time in the system as an adult?
Yeah, I went to the federal system.
Let's talk about that.
So,
because the topic of this conversation is second chance.
so I have 30.
Okay,
30 chances.
let's talk about the adult part of Cincere dealing with.
So as an adult,
Come on, let's talk.
as an adult, I had an incident where I was pulled over in Lima, Ohio, and I allegedly had 7 kilos, right? So through an illegal search and seizure, I didn't beat the case. I just ended up opening up more attention to myself. My little brother was with me. So, I caught hell from my mom for that, but I was on my way back from seeing my daughter in Atlanta. I got tailed, and in Lima, Ohio, I got pulled over. That was in July of 97. That kind of opened up the floodgates on me as an adult. And then I ended up in an incident in Washington State in Alaska where
Part of Washington State, maybe. I got tires to wash.
I was just floating through them. So it was Spokane.
Okay, I know about Spokane, right. Seattle, Tacoma.
Right. So it wasn't like, they had a little gang situation down there.
Yeah, I understand I was there. Certain mess a lot of days for me, though. I'm a little older,
Yeah. I remember them days.
That's that part.
So,
keep talking, baby.
So I had a little connection between Washington State and Alaska on the drug tip.
Gotcha.
And again, manipulating the systems, the banking systems and this, that, and the other. And I end up catching a federal case at that time. Now, at this time, I was also in the military.
What's
So-
service, bro?
I was in the Army.
Really? Where were you stationed at?
Well, at the time, I was stationed at 6ID, so I was stationed in Fairbanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Yep. And then I used to go down, what is it in Washington State? St. Louis?
You got Tacoma, Seattle,
No, I'm talking about the Army base.
Washington, Tacoma, Madigan Army Medical Center in Tacoma, Washington.
No,
And let's just talk about Air Force. You talking Air
No, it's an Army base. It's an Army and Air Force base is always together. So I can't remember the name of the Army.
Force? I can't, you know what, because I was at Fort Lewis, Washington, but I was at Madigan Army.
Oh, Fort Lewis.
There you go.
Fort Lewis, yeah. Well, that's where they're going. So I said St. Louis. I said St. Louis.
Cooking with grease, baby. That's all right.
Something going on between Fort Lewis,
Got you.
Anchorage, and
Never knew
Fairbanks.
that connection.
Yeah, right. So I got caught up in that, and I ended up having to do. I had I'm not gonna say it was a money laundering charge. I had some type of laundering charge, and I ended up having to go to the feds for a short amount of time. So I think I had like 2 years, but I got out in like 9 months. Went to the halfway house. I came home, and it was after that where I ended up with my long stint in prison. So, when I got indicted through the state, I ended up with a 57, 75 year sentence. So that's
That's bro. Pump your brakes. This is where Noodle steps in and says, hold on. Let me clean out my ears. You said the judge gave you what type of sentence?
I had a 57 to 75 year sentence.
Okay.
So what ended up happening is all of my charges were run consecutive.
Concurrently, as they say, right?
No. Consecutive.
So it ain't concurrently. Because you're right.
So what ended up happening is later it ended up being reversed. But when I was initially sentenced, I was initially sentenced to a 4th degree habitual, which gave them the entitlement to be able to sentence me consecutively. And that's how I ended up with all that time. And then it was later that I had some actions in the court where one of the convictions were overturned, one of them were dropped, and then they had to supplement my sentence, and I ended up doing 15 years. So I did 15, 2 and 2. 2 as a juvenile, 2 in the feds, and then 15 in the state.
You know, I got to ask you this question. And one of the things that, you know, me coming up where I came up from, 6 Mile, Illinois, coming home and back in the late 80s from the military, from Tacoma, Washington.
Okay.
Coming back to the D, 87. And for us OGs, those unks, as these youngins call us these days, right? The drug game back then, baby, was hot like fire. You feel me? So here's my question to you. To get hit with that charge, you said, how many years again?
Or 57 to 75.
Oh, okay. Make sure my math is right. Let me ask you this as a black man. How did that make you feel?
Well, I didn't put a color on it at the time. Asking me how I feel about it now that I'm legitimate is different than asking me at the time. At the time, and it was a part of the game. You know, it was what it was. I didn't really care about consequences because that's the clean part of talking about my past. So the reality of it is, since I did well financially, a lot of the turmoil that came along with the streets is not necessarily what's discussed. Because there was a lot of violence, there was a lot of, the back and forth, it was a lot of beefing, it was a lot of losses. You know what I'm saying? And generally, everybody in the game has a different place. And generally, you're defined by however it is you made your name. Yeah. So what we do is we play the games for what it is. I know people that say they hate drug dealers, and I'd be like, man, and they sold drugs. So what we do is we define things based upon what our nature is. So if the nature of your game is you a shooter, then that's what you push, being a shooter. And then you'll push everything else down. The person who's a hustler is not going to talk about being a shooter. The guy who's a shooter is not going to talk about being a hustler. they're all in the same lanes, but people push what other people put you in.
But they have their expertise. I'm a shooter, you the hustler, blase split.
Well, I'll tell you this. I've been all of them.
Okay. All right.
The reality of it is, for instance, I never played the tough card. What I need to play tough for? I was already out there. I've done my dirt. I don't have my push and pull. I did all the time in the system, never had to play the tough card, right? I'm gonna take care of my business when it comes down, but I don't have to live and die by one card, right? So I chose a lane and I perfected my lane in my time, right? But I still was in the same lane with everybody else, right? Because at the end of the day, we can't make it without each other. So no one's by themselves. So everybody runs their portion of, well, everybody tells their story how they want to tell their story. So I was just talking to a couple of my friends. I'm in the office the other day. I'm in my office. I'm talking to one of my guys. And he a gangster, all day gangster, still right now this day, 50 years old, still a gangster. That was his lane. His lane is he was a shooter, right? That's what he's known for. Everybody's known for something. Most people don't want to admit it, but everybody's known for something. I'm known for mysteriously getting me some money, nobody knowing how I did it, and having a pretty girl, right? That was my lane. But the reality of it is, I survived on the same platform that everybody else survived for 40 years. So for 42 years, I've been on that same platform. I just went my route.
How old are you now, Cincere?
I'm 53.
53. So, you know what, let's segue into this. As I read your bio, let's talk about the work that you do with Ceasefire. How did that come about? And please elaborate on what it is you do in that role that you serve. You're a part of Ceasefire in Detroit, baby.
So
How did that come about?
about 6 years ago, there was a young lady named Sheila Young. And she was on my social media page. And a lot of people don't get, but my social media page is, it's psychological. I go the metaphorical route on my page.
Because you mess with a person's brain.
Yeah. So purposely, I set up people to help me with the content creation. And what I did is I focused on a particular demographic. I focused on women, and I focused on fathers, and I focused on like returning citizens. So I had a young lady on my page, and she kind of broke the code. So out of all the people over all of the years, nobody could ever get it. And this one person got it, because the goal was just to help one person a day in some form or fashion. If you can't help them physically, to help a person get over whatever their hump is.
Yes.
And one day she DM'd me. And she was like, have you ever thought about having a conversation with the Detroit Police Department? And we had this program called Ceasefire. And my immediate response to her was like, you do know I'm a crook. If you know what I'm saying?
You know I'm gangster, baby. I've been here.
Dealing me about having a conversation with the police.
Right.
And the reality of it was she wore me down because she was respectful in the approach. And this is a DM. And I'm like, it was a real person on a real page. Cause I started doing my homework and there was nothing odd about this woman. So I took the meeting to see what they were talking about. And what she did is she introduced the idea to her boss at the time. And her boss at the time was would end up being Chief White, now the CEO of STWN. And what they were looking for was people who was credible messengers to be able to try to reach out to the youth. So that led to a meeting with Quincy Smith, which led to a meeting.
Team Pursuit.
Yeah, Team Pursuit.
That part.
Quincy was very instrumental in introducing me to the brand and helping me get acclimated with the work that they do. That led to a meeting with Bishop Harris and Cheryl Jones, and that in turn turned into my role. And my role in Ceasefire in the beginning was different. I was hired in as a resource coordinator. And then they saw that I had a skill set, a particular skill set that was a little bit different than most. And this is what led me in the advocacy route. and led me to lead me into the legal aid world. So
Gotcha. With that, I want to take one pause for the cause. Can y'all hit pause for 1 second, please? Quick. I get this out. Hit pause. Quarterback. Let it process. Call it over.
that's that old man, man.
Swell, baby. Heck of a story, man.
Man, I'll try, man. Try to stay out of the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is. I don't think of it myself because I'm the one who has
Of
to
course.
live it, but I'm also the one who has to remain on the straight and narrow.
Of course.
It's rare that you can make it in the streets, get out, and still be as relevant when you go legit. But I'm dead serious about that. Sit back, let everybody think they got the answer.
Right.
I'm like, man, I'm 11 million up. And I'm gonna sit across tables from people who figure like, they got the answer. I'm like, okay, it is what it is. What do I care?
Right.
Go get you some more debt. Go try to get your credit score up. Go, you know what I'm saying? All of these different areas. And it's not really that it's a big deal, but when you go the legit route, you have to figure out how people who are legit live. You get up and go to work every day. It's that nothing. I look at the world differently. I look at the world like, why do you have attitude?
Right.
Why do you think you know it all?
Right.
Okay. What is your educational level? What's your job? Who boss are you? Where your tax returns at? You know what I'm saying? Nah, that's not necessarily the answer to everything, but the more people push and pull, the more I expect from them. So if you say you smart, well then just show me you smart. If you say you special, tell me what makes you special. You special? Okay. So what do you define it? And those are the people that always tell you money ain't everything. Okay, if money ain't everything, then what are you good at? Just be real good at whatever it is that you do. And not take a dollar for it. Because money ain't everything. So the money thing is something you have to debate when you grow up in, the foundation of the society that we grew up in. This is a very poor place, so, we have to deal with whatever it is we have to deal with.
Yeah, man. Heard.
So, you all right? You all right there over there?
All right. Remember where you left home, man? I know. You were, you could just say, you're good to segue in another conversation, so. Okay, let me do this. Yeah. Where do we leave off at?
We left off at what I do for ceasefire.
Correct.
Legal aid, right there. We was touching on legal aid, so that would be the segue.
So let's pick that up. So when you say you were dealing with legal aid, help me understand, what does that mean relative to your role?
Well,
Ceasefire.
I have a very unique relationship with the legal community. And that legal community comprises of relationships with judges, the attorneys in the legal community, the court systems, understanding the court systems, understanding the constitutional bounds of it, the protocols of the court system, knowing how to alleviate people of obstacles legally by knowing the system and helping them navigate through it at a minimal cost.
So if I were to digest what you just shared, and if I had to, let's say, respond back to you, obviously, certain individuals that find themselves in a situation where they need an advocate, you're that advocate. Is that safe to say or no?
Yes. And
because based on your experience, based on your growth, how God has given you on the Son, he's given you, that's part of your ministry, Cincere. You feel me? So in that role that you play, you're helping other people to avoid what you had to experience. Am I right or am I wrong?
Yeah. The perfect example is the day when I met you, there was a young man we were having a conversation with. It was several young men we was having a conversation with.
Oh, bro, come on, Samigo.
A father, a son, and then there was a young guy that was just walking through the community who wasn't looking for help. He stopped to get something to eat. That young man was going through a legal battle of his own. He was trying to work. He was trying to better his situation. We sat down, me, you, and a couple of other guys that were there in the community sat down. We had a conversation with him. I assessed the situation. And when I went to look him up, you know, he had like $7,000 worth of warrants, tickets, and legal issues. And I literally made an appointment with him, went and picked him up, took him to court, and through the relationships that I have in the court, wrote the motions and everything to have all of those warrants vacated, took him to court. We settled everything, ended up handling it with community service. And then they put him in a position where he was able to rid himself of them obstacles, and it didn't cost him a dime. We literally did it as being a part of the community, trying to help out because it was a community event, you know, and we were there to, you know, to basically do what we could for the people, you know, in the neighborhood.
See, and you know what you just said. And here's the thing we have to understand in the Black community. And I was going to say it for the end, but God said, no, say it now. Nobody's coming to save us but us, right? Here's another gift that I recognize that you have, my brother. I read your bio. You're a public speaker. You definitely have an oratorial gift from God. How did that begin?
I think I was kind of pushed into that arena because before this came about, I'm not a public guy. I would say I'm the most private public person I know. So the era of social media has put us out there to be seen, and I have a big social media following, but my life is real laid back. I'm real private in real life. So I don't seek attention. So what ended up happening is being a part of the legal access that I had to the legal community and what I was doing as an advocate put me in positions where in order for me to reach people, I had to be in the public. You know, I had to do something in the public to draw people out. Okay. So Ceasefire placed us in positions where it put us into the schools, it put us into the community, and then eventually whatever our lanes were and our specialties, that's where they would send us. So like the day that I met you was a day that I was in the public, had to give a public speech, had to show some recognition for one of the sisters in the organization that was right there, lobbying for
mothers keeping boots on the ground.
Boots on the ground, you know, lobbying for the capture or information about her son's death. And then I started to figure out that sometimes a message is necessary. And I literally had to step up and speak then because somebody else wasn't there. So it was my turn. So I had to learn more so the teamwork effort. When I got put on a team and I had a role, that kind of pushed me into that realm. And then the gentleman that I was speaking on there, Andre Norman, he is he's one of them global guys. You know what I'm saying? He goes all over the world doing the public speaking and facilitating and things of that nature.
Yes.
He kind of took me up under his wing and he kind of taught me the game. Okay. So that placed me in a position where it put me on a national scale where I leave where I'm from and I go all over the country and kind of do the public speaking thing.
You know, one of the things that I recognize, because not only, like I said, I met you in the community, but we're also Facebook friends. And like you said, we both follow each other, right? We check in on each other. If we don't talk, if we don't meet on Facebook, we follow each other on Facebook. Now, let me tell you, I saw a video of yourself the other day where you were actually talking to brothers that are incarcerated.
Yeah.
Is that part of your prison ministry? Please share with us. Why do you do what you do relative to, let's say, going into the prison system and pouring into, obviously based on your experience, where does that come from, Cincere?
Well, I think where it comes from is a lot of people don't really give themselves a chance to change. So being in a position where I can go back into a system that I'm not going to say I chose to be in, but my decisions led me into.
Okay.
To give them confidence, to show them what's possible, right? So I've been able to go into prisons in several states, Indiana, Florida, Louisiana. I was in Louisiana in those, which are so. Louisiana, South Carolina, Virginia, New York, Michigan. I've been able to go, Nevada, California. I've been able to go all over the country to be able to do that. The one thing about being inside the system is everybody is equal. So no matter where you go, the system is equal. You're still gonna have the same challenges when you get out. So we're there, and I'm gonna say we because I'm not alone. Anybody who does the work, we're there to show people that life is not over. You know, I told a brother of mine 30 some odd years ago, they gave you life, but you still have your life to live. So regardless of where you are, you still have a life to live. And there are gonna be challenges. And I literally walked into prison and told everybody in here failed it. That was then. That was then. Okay. What are we gonna do about tomorrow? What can we do to earth? So the reality of it is we have to deal with whatever our issues are at the time, and then we have to grow up. At some point in time, we have to mature. We have to figure out what's next. And then our lanes change. My lane, the lane that I was in 30 years ago is not the lane I'm in now. I don't think the same way. I don't do the same things. You know what I'm saying? 30 years ago, I could have met you on the same corner, but my presence would have been different because I would have never had anything to say. I might have came and donated the food, but then I'm doing it through a different means. Blood money and work money is different.
That correct.
Some people get it. Some people talk about it, right? But the reality of it is different. There's a difference.
Fact.
Right? But why I do it? I do it because, you know, I want people to realize that they deserve a better quality of life, right? Regardless of what the situation is, people need to be in situations where they're not judged. And a lot of people on the inside, a lot of them don't feel like they had that hope. A lot of them don't feel like they had that chance. And if you don't reach people and help to fine tune them, they're going to go back to what they know.
You know what? And that's why I'm a firm believer in this. When God assigns us a ministry, right? Because he's giving me my ministry. He's giving you your ministry. And one of the things that I respect about you, bro, when I follow you on Facebook, you always keep it 100. You don't sugarcoat anything. And I used to tell people, if you want a donut, go to Dunkin' Donuts. Here you want to sugarcoat it, baby. But if you come rock with noodles, you're going to get it flat, no chaser. You feel me? So let me ask you this question, man. So, lately I've had quite a few conversations, and I want to bring it closer to home, the city of Detroit, our current state. You know, I'm here and there, I'm everywhere. Because I always tell people, you can't hit a moving target, so you got to keep it moving, right? But people I chop it up with, and I've chatted with quite a few folks. Let me ask you your perspective. Do you feel as though in the city of Detroit, and it hurts me, but at the same time, we got to talk about it. You feel like it's a crab in the bucket mentality in the city of Detroit where it's based on haters. They don't want to see us all succeed, that you either got to be politically connected, but yet we can't figure out a way to unite.
Well, you have to ask that question specifically. So what body of people, what population of people are we talking about?
I'm just talking about...
Because it sounds to me like we're talking about that from the business aspect is one thing. The actual day-to-day citizen is another. This is a very poor city. You have to realize if you do the research on this city, we're in the top 5 of probably the poorest in the major metropolitan city over the last 30, 40 years, right? So, for instance, your history, UAW, the foundation of it is the jobs start going way long time ago. So what happens is you are an individual who made it through the system, right? And you have colleagues who've made it through the system, but on the most part, the city is, you know, it's entrenched in poverty. So now we're dealing with that mindset. So now the environment in the demographics in which we grow, we are dealing with people who have never truly seen success, really don't know how to succeed, and don't know what comes next. So you're basically just dealing with people who fall into their routine. Now, being politically connected and all that, that's generally not what's going to happen in poor cities. You have a very small number of people who are going to be able to grow and be a part of those circles. But it also takes wisdom, education, sprinkled with a little bit of knowledge, know-how, and a skill set. That's not something that everybody's interested in. We come from a society where people are literally living check to check. The person who's living check to check, who's trying to make it, is not the person who fits that the criteria of what you're talking about. Now, for the people, if you're saying, okay, if I ask you what your goals are, anybody, if I ask them what their goals are, their goals can be determined by what crowd they're in. And then they have to adjust their goals to the crowd that they want to be in. If you're in a crowd where you need credentials, guess what? You got to go get you some credentials.
All right, with that, I'm about to shit this conversation. So, in today's climate, I'm talking about the state of the country. For where, beyond a shadow of a doubt, facts are facts, opinions are opinions. Men lie, women lie, data don't lie.
Okay.
Okay? We got a white supremacist and felon occupying the White House. How does that make you feel as a strong black man?
You want to know the truth?
Speaking back, that's why I want spending time with noodles. Come on now, talk to me.
The reality of it to me on a political realm is my grandmother had this conversation with me around the time Obama was elected. And she said, "What's going to be a lot of changes. I finally made it. I'm seeing a black president." That was a real big thing, a real big thing for the older.
It was.
So my actual response to that question is, I could really care less who's in the White House because I'm not lazy. I'm not gonna, I'm not going to self-destruct or self-sabotage myself. So my instructions to people when this order of change came was, you can look at it two ways. He pulled off a caper. You know what I'm saying? By playing guard, baby, I love that. He played off a caper. Sorry. So now the way I look at it from a business standpoint is he can only be there so long. So I can spend my time not liking that he's there and not liking him, or I could learn the system that he beat. Right?
Oh, Lord, I know,
So,
baby.
So I'm not gonna sit around and trump this and trump that for the next 4 years because I get to say that for the next 4 years because it's not gonna. Listen, we have bigger problems. We got bigger fish to fry. And since you went the political route, who's gonna run for president next time? And who's gonna run for president the time after that? And the way it's looking, with him being in office, it's looking very Republicanish in the future.
You right.
So instead of me focusing on him, you know what I'm focusing on right now?
What's that?
Managing my finances, making sure that I don't put too much money out that I can't get back, and separating myself from people who are gonna use me up.
Ooh, baby. See, blow down. You all up my program.
Because,
now. You're my agenda.
yeah, he's going to.
Questions to ask you. See, you jumping the gun. Why? Because you and I are like-minded.
So just to go back to finish that,
Yes.
as a black man, I'm just like, it is what it is. But guess what? You just spoke of the crab in the barrel theory, right? Well, I'm a black man in a major metropolitan city that has experienced a very defined population of poverty for a very long time. So being a black man in a city like this, coming from the family that I come from, that hasn't experienced success, this, that, and other, it's just as bad seeing some type of success in the city that I'm from, because you're going to separate yourself from a lot of the people who you are tied to. Family, friends, this, that, and other. So I have to worry about being alienated in my own community before I got to start worrying about the white folks.
So, with that being said,
Bro.
this ain't nothing but God.
I know you are a smart, intelligent brother. And so sometimes, no, you're
Right, a good 2 days a week.
you know what? We try to wake people up with Project 2025 to educate our voters, more so the Black community. And we see it being played out today. It's happening. It's real. They have a game plan. So I guess I would say, or the question I would pose to you, man, and I want you to be brief in your response because I got some other things I want to hit you with because I know time is approaching us.
Yeah, because I'm about to run out the door.
So we talked about Project 2025 before the election. Let me just ask you this. Simply as, do you see Project 2025 playing out in its original format that they proposed way before the election occurred? Is it not coming to fruition?
What I'll say is I understand Project 2025.
I know you do.
And I know that a lot of people don't understand Project 2025. So the reality of it is people who understand how it affects them is what, is how I would address it. The vast majority of the people in my demographic, they don't understand it. They're not going to see the effects of it because they're not trying to grow. When I go back to Mac and Bewick, it's a lot of Mac and Bewick that's not trying to grow. So Project 2025 does not affect them because of the environment that they're in, and they're not trying to grow out of that environment.
But let me ask you this, Cincere, you're a leader. I'm a leader. How do we, if you had one piece of advice to give to the brothers and sisters, let's say that are still in the hood, let's call it that, community, hood, whatever you want to classify it as. What one piece of advice would you give them relative to politics to get them to understand that what the government is imposing on you is not good for you? What would you tell them to do?
I would tell them to do something to challenge their comfort zone. Go enroll in a class, because it doesn't matter what level of education you have. Go enroll in something that can better your knowledge of something else. This is a challenge.
So you know, there's a Kenyan proverb: before you spit something out ahead, put something up here.
Right.
That part.
So the reality of it is, once they challenge their comfort zone, then they'll see just how difficult it is to make it to wherever it is they're trying to, whatever journey they're trying to embark on, they're going to see the differences. So if you have the issue, if you don't have an education, if you go enroll in GED, right? You go enroll in high school equivalency, it's going to be a challenge, right? So now the people who are making the decisions have already done that. In order for you to be a part of change, you have to challenge it. So sometimes we have to challenge in what we see. We have to challenge what we see in the mirror.
Well, the great Norbert X said himself, if we play by the oppressor's rules, we don't lose. Those weren't his exact words, but they are.
Oh, no, yeah, I get it.
You feel me?
Yeah, I get it.
Sometimes we got to rise up and say, no. Because of what I share with people here lately, the very fabric of this country, if you understand history, when you do research, when that third eye is woke, you understand that white supremacy is the rule of this country until
The mentality of
that part.
it.
That part.
Because guess what? We feed into that. If I shoot you down in any form or fashion, the people who are watching, they applaud that. Right? So we have to be mindful of how we challenge one another, because it still feeds into that claim. So when you say white supremacy and we say a particular foundation and we speak of like the crab in the barrel theories, the second we go against the grain, whether we realize it or not, we contribute to that. So now, unfortunately, more people can tune in to our thoughts. Whereas we from a generation where you only knew the only people who knew what your thoughts were people in your household or the people in front of you. Because we couldn't be on TV every day. We couldn't be on the internet every day. We couldn't be on the internet. So you were the man wherever you were from, and then you had to do something to cross over. So now we're able to share our thoughts, and then people interpret them however they want. So now just being associated with the wrong thing could knock you off the pedestal. And then it turns into the crab in the barrel theory.
So, you know what, my man? I got to give you some love, baby, because we got to wrap up the show. But you got some badges of honor on you. You that came suited and booted. And if you don't mind, I want you to go through each badge that you have on your blazer and explain what it represents, if you don't mind.
Okay, the bottom badge is my day job. So the bottom badge is, represents the health department and my role inside the health department.
Ceasefire?
So, not just Ceasefire, but the whole health department as a whole. All the programming, the foundations, fatherhood, all the different programs. They have, at least I would say 15 to 20 extra resources outside of Ceasefire. Lead testing, A61 baby, fatherhood programs, hearing testing, Detroit ID.
Gotcha.
Immunizations, things of that nature.
Give me that next badge, baby.
The next badge is this represents the foundation of the Masonic Order.
Okay.
So it's
Discipline. I call that discipline.
It's a visual of the ups and downs of the world and how we view it based upon the actual floor that's put together when we come together in brotherhood. This pin is a representation of Eastern Stars and the Masonic Order.
My grandmother was like a star.
Right. So the men and the when they come together, but in order to wear this pin, you have to go through a process.
Correct.
And kind of obtain the knowledge of both orders. So this allows me to be able to be a patron over the Eastern Stars.
Gotcha.
Of course, this is just a basic Masonic pin, something that you earn over time, being able to represent the brotherhood. And then the top pin is I received this after receiving an honor from the city. I received several Spirit of Detroit awards and some other awards. So this was given to me by one of the city council and the mayor.
Awesome.
Yeah. So the reason why I wear it is because to be able to wear the pins, you have to represent what you're a part of. And if you're not representing what you're a part of, you need not wear the pins. So I have to, it's more than just a character thing, a foundation, but being able to represent something greater than myself, and all of this stands for community. So wherever you see me, I'm only going to wear this in the community.
I love what you just said, community, because this is how we're going to wrap up this show. How does somebody get a hold of you if they need some guidance from Brother Cincere?
I'll tell you the easiest way to get a hold of me, I have a business page. It's called Sincere Principal Consultant Group, LLC. You can actually reach me on that page. It's a direct line to my business. Or I have an email that people can reach out to me, and a phone number. The email is cpclegal@yahoo. So the initials are C as in cat, P as in Paul, C as in cat, legal@yahoo.com. Or they
Read it one more time so the team captures it so it can be part of the contest. So that way I ain't got to follow you. Slow down. Repeat it one more time for me, baby.
Okay, cpclegal@yahoo. That's my email.
Gotcha.
And then, of course, they could just, call my company, Sincere Principal Consulting Group. The number is 313-649-4561. And I have an assistant. They're going to answer. If they don't answer, you can leave a voicemail or a text message, and whatever the legal concern or whatever they need assistance with in advocacy, they can set an appointment with me. They could come. I have brick and mortar. You know, as you know, you've been to my office.
Absolutely.
I have several offices around the city. So
You gotta get into another few offices. You're that. I want to get down with you, man. I want to get on your level.
yeah, the reality of it is all the offices serve different purposes. So for the people that I work with around the city, I have offices for whatever that purpose is, for whatever that visit is. You know.
So you know what? This is how I'm gonna close on my show. I want to thank my brother Cincere. Brother that I met on Finkel Avenue in the city of Detroit, in the community, baby. But guess what? I got to give a shout out. If you haven't heard, we got an angel in the community. Both of you and I both know. Tijuana Rankins.
Yes, sir.
She's got a charity fundraising event coming up on Friday, February 25th at the St. Regis Hotel.
February, is that right?
Oh, no, not February. Oh, Lord Jesus, not March. April. There you go. See, sometimes I ain't always right.
Because I'm going to be there. I know it.
And I don't mind being wrong. See, I love it. Thank you, Cincere. I needed your help.
Well, if you would have
Friday, April 25th, the St. Regis Hotel. And let me tell you about this young lady. She lost her daughter to senseless gun violence in the city of Detroit. She has turned her pain into purpose. So on Friday, April 25th, St. Regis Hotel in Detroit, charity fundraiser. Tijuana is somebody that has turned her pain into purpose. Her daughter was murdered by senseless gun violence in 2016. She recently put on a luncheon for mothers that have lost their children to senseless gun violence. Community, I'm calling on you. I'm going to show up at some of my people's Black-owned businesses, and I'll ask for donations. I'm not going to lock the doors. I ain't going to call you out. I'm going to say, do what God says do. If it's in your heart, give what you give. You want to know why? Because this angel in the community, Alana Rankins, what she does, baby, she keeps her daughter's memory on Front Street. She just recently had a mother's luncheon for mothers that lost their children to senseless gun violence. She does clothing drives. She does prom send-offs. She's doing a charity event Friday, April 25th at the St. Regis Hotel in Detroit. We got Crime Stoppers on board. You got Vonda Evans on board and D.N. Nolen LLC. And you know what the N stands for. It stands for noodles. I'm on board. I'm going to do some community fundraising things, man. Oh, I got a box that I'm going to take around to some of my business owners. I'm going to say, hey, only people coming to save us is us. She gives away scholarships. She does clothing drives. She does prom send-offs. This is a mother that has turned her pain into purpose. So you know what? If you want more information, follow me on Facebook. Tune into my YouTube channel, Spending Time With Noodles. Or just reach out to me, Darryl Nolen, DARRYLNOLEN, not A-N, but E-N. And all I want to say is to my good brother Cincere, baby, you know I ain't got no love for you. This is the beginning of our collaboration. We got more work to do, baby.
Appreciate you.
I'm coming to hang out with you brothers on Finkel more often. You know how I feel about my man Phil over there, baby.
Yeah.
You know, that's real talk. You feel me? So, thank you all for tuning in. And we're going to talk about how we move in the city of Detroit. We can't take on white supremacy if we don't unite as black folks. It's been your guy Noodles. Love, peace, no hair grease. Thank you, Cincere, for joining me, baby.
Thanks for having me.
But the most beautiful things in life are not just things. They're people and places, memories and pictures. They're feelings and moments.